Hi, I'm Deb Radcliffe. I was the moderator for a discussion today titled Two Worlds Collide, How to Prevent a Cyber Physical Attack on Your Infrastructure. And I had some very nice experts on the panel with me who I've known for decades. We've got Mark Sachs, and we've got Renee Gutman, and they will tell you a little bit about their background, and then we will get into what we discussed.
A little about our background. That's pretty easy because we've all known each other forever, but you don't know who we are. So I'm Mark Sachs, a retired Army officer, was in the service for about 20 years, retired back in '01, and was deeply involved in the physical world of engineering, building things in the military, and then kind of sidetracked into the cybersecurity world in the late 90s, and have been doing both since then. So I spent some time at the White House after retiring, helped create Homeland Security, and all the bits and pieces that have grown up to be the cyber side, and worked at Verizon for a while, was the Chief Security Officer of the Power Grid at NERC for a few years. And today I live in Huntsville, Alabama, which is where we build rockets, and we have to think about securing the interplanetary physical world, like how do we do all this on the moon and on Mars. But for a living, I work for the Center for Internet Security, and we work closely with state, local, tribal, territorial governments to ensure the security of the municipal world. So think of utilities as well as traffic control, email for the mayor, all that good stuff.
Mark, when I was a new cyber journalist, I interviewed you and put you on the cover of a magazine.
Computer World.
My question to you is, was I the first one who actually interviewed you for a story like that?
You were the first for a magazine.
Okay.
So it's like being on the cover of the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, it was fun.
That was a lot of fun, yeah. And I'm in uniform and trying to look real serious.
He looked really good in his uniform.
Yeah, I think that's the problem actually, because we've all been in magazines. So I'm Renee Gutman, and I've certainly seen the age progression. I've been in security for right and the terrible hairdos that I've had. But I've been in security for about 30 years. My first RSA conference was 1996. So I'm coming up on my 30-year anniversary. For folks that know what RSA is, it's a fairly big deal in terms of cybersecurity. I started my career at GlaxoSmithKline. I put in a PKI for people that remember what that is. I then went on to, I was one of the first Gartner analysts. I then went on to Time Inc. and Time Warner, and I was there for quite a bit. Built the program up for Time Warner, and actually was the head of incident response for all of AOL Time Warner, which meant that I don't think I slept for 7 years. Then was hired to be the first CISO at Coca-Cola, had global responsibility. I also worked at Royal Caribbean, which is when I encountered some of the things under a ship that are not necessarily known to people in IT, at least they weren't at the time. And worked with the Coast Guard to establish the first maritime program with for the cruise industry. My last position was at Campbell's, and they hired me specifically to help them with the security of the manufacturing environments. I would say that the first time I encountered what I'm going to call an IT/OT issue is when I was in Cape Town and I saw a manufacturing plant that was halted. And I saw that, I went up to one of the screens and I saw that it had at that time we didn't have ransomware, we had malware in say 2012 or something like that. But I've probably spent the last 12 years of my career in cyber looking at the convergence of cyber and physical security.
And Renee, the first time I interviewed you, was that 2000? Were you still at Time Warner when
I was at Time Inc. at the time, and it was
She was
the
the
year
first
2000.
CISO and first female CISO I had ever met as a new, I started in this in 1995, 96 as a journalist, and I remember just being so excited that there was a female leader in our industry who got it. Like, she got the business side, the cyber side, and the physical side, and the compliance side.
There's very few people that do all three.
She did all four.
Or all four.
Yeah, but that's when you could do all four.
That's
I think today there's a lot more specialization, and I do think one area that's still emerging is the better understanding and the level of collaboration between people on the physical and people in the IT space.
Well, and cyber is everywhere now. we used to have everything isolated, and even in the operational world, the physical world, computers have been there. I mean, it's not new to bring computers to that world, but it is new to connect them and then to connect that to the cloud or to public infrastructure where the threat actors and the risks are very different. In the physical world, we can put fences and stuff around, and we can keep unauthorized actors from coming in. But you connect it, and now the whole world can gain access.
Well, what about a handheld device for operator in the field that's going right to a PLC or right to any other kind of controller system? That handheld device might be his own phone.
So
right?
So we talked for about 45 minutes, and it started with the, why is this a problem? And it's a problem because, as we just said, everything's connected. And I would say that COVID exacerbated the need for there to be more of a dynamic between cyber and physical, because when we couldn't get into our plants, the manufacturing folks decided to, place routers and things so that people could remotely, troubleshoot and gain access. And for all I know, they could still be there, although, and so there has to be that better communication and discovery of what's in the entirety of your organization, both the physical devices, which are really not standalone anymore. Cameras are just basically connected to everything, and they have operating systems just like everything else. So long story short, it was a lot about like the why, like why this is an important topic. It's still incredible to me that it hasn't been raised at higher as a higher order topic. Although I do understand that RSA, one of the key themes this year is critical infrastructure protection. I also believe that there are statistics. I'm not saying they're completely accurate, that where people are starting to track the number of deaths where a patient cannot go to a hospital because the hospital's been ransomed, and there's no surgery that day, and there's no ability for somebody to get in and even book an appointment to see a doctor.
Or be sent to another emergency care center, be rerouted.
So it's really our the first part of our talk was about why people should really take this matter to heart and start thinking about, what are the better practices that they can put in place to to draw down the risk of this particular situation.
The good news, though, the answers are out there. It's not like I have to make something up. There's plenty of guides, plenty of help, and so we see the older physical world, this is like your grandpa's network kind of stuff. The newer generations don't exactly want to do that anymore.
Isn't some of that still on COBOL?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But if I'm a kid coming out of college and I'm coming into the career field, going and working for a power company or working for a gas pipeline is not really high on my list. I'd rather go work for Google, OpenAI, or all these new things. So a lot of the talent is heading off. The young talent is heading off to these newer technologies. But yet the older critical infrastructure absolutely needs that talent. And so this is a problem.
We didn't even talk about that in the session today.
We didn't, but we did talk about organization and the fact that there's really a language barrier that exists between IT and OT. There's sometimes even a lack of trust, and I say this because early on in my career, I tried to deploy some of the security tools that I was using in IT in the OT environment, and you really have to think about things when you get a call to say, hey, you just took down the manufacturing environment. Are you disconnected our call centers because you were doing something, And so what the good news is that there are technologies now that are more purposeful, that will allow you to discover, what is in your network. And by the way, what's moved to the cloud. Like I wouldn't be surprised right now if a lot of the backups from these physical systems are living in the cloud. So you've really got to understand the environment and get a grip on it.
Well, much of it's brought in by our vendors. So they want to update a pump or a valve or a control system. The new device that comes in generally is cloud connected. Think of this just like at home with all your IoT, from cameras to Alexas to smart TVs. Yeah, you can control it locally, but its back end goes off to AWS or someplace. And so in the plant, the same thing is happening with these new connected devices as they come in. They have a physical presence. You can see it. You can see a lock, you can see a camera. but on the back end, they're hooked into cloud services, and that's the weakness that really bothers
I mean,
a lot of
that's
us,
what
'cause
we're
we don't
seeing
know
at
what's
this
there.
show with just the physical security devices, the cameras.
Oh
Yeah.
my, yeah. Well, I
and
was just walking the
access.
floor.
Yeah.
And everybody out
Everything,
there,
everything.
all the new, what I always like to call the blinky light solutions.
Yes.
You know, lots of blinky lights, but they also silently connect to cloud services or private data centers or elsewhere. And therein lies the risk, because that's outside of your physical realm.
Right.
And all the controls you're doing physically don't apply to that
One of the vendors there was all about integration loop.
Yeah.
And I didn't stop to ask them if they had a security play, because the integrators, they might not even be thinking about this stuff. Oh yeah, it's cloud backup, blah, 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 you know. So that's some stuff we didn't talk about today because we didn't have time.
No.
But when you look at the tools vendors that are here, that discussion also has to be.
And I think, you know, and it comes down to the organization and just, you know, IT, you know, if you have a critical vulnerability, IT, you know, and the auditors want that thing patched, you know, within a week. We can't do that. So
That's right.
a better practice is to understand how exploitable something is, you know, and not just start, you know, saying, well, I've got all these vulnerabilities and therefore, you know, Rockwell, go fix it. Because, I mean,
It's not just how exploitable, it's the probability of exploitation, and it is the ability to do a patch or a workaround. Now, physical security may not be that interested in this, but that's where we have to help pull these sides
So I
together.
see a lot of people too in the physical world, they're worried about cyber world because they don't understand it.
Right.
You know, what do I do if there's a cyber attack and so forth? My answer to them is focus on consequences. You know, somebody else is absolutely going to be concerned about, is it a Chinese threat actor or a Russian threat actor? You know, where's this thing coming from? Your consequences are the same.
Will your water be
regardless,
polluted?
right?
Yeah.
Whether the
Yeah.
impact on your customers. And so the same mitigation you're thinking about for storms, lightning, flood, you know, things in the regular physical world is what you need to be addressing if you have more cyber exposure. And so it is a bit of a leap to say, don't worry about the cyber threat actor. The cyber friends, oh, that's heresy. But for the physical world, no. Focus on consequences and consequence management.
and a lot of it's operational. It can also impact safety or people's perception of safety.
Yep.
The final thing that I'll say, because I didn't really talk about what I do now, but I do work in the field with solution providers, and part of what I do, because I've been through a couple of different industries, never worked in government, that could still be on my list.
Never too late.
But you know, really about educating folks, you know, on these things and how they can work better, smarter together. If somebody's going to RSA, I think that they should evaluate, you know, what they can also be doing, you know, to better support the physical side. And then the final piece, if the Wish Fair is listening, and I hope she's listening, that I do think that, and I'm spending time actually up-leveling, you know, what our auditors, what our compliance folks understand, and what boards also understand about this risk, so they can also drive better questions and be more supportive of what's coming down here in terms, you know, in the future of risk.
Yeah, let me highlight two things as well. A program I've been working on the last 5 years or so is called Cyber Informed Engineering. We're taking a fresh look at traditional engineers, mechanical, electrical, civil, chemical, and again, having them understand the consequence side, but now they're informed about cyber risks. So they have previously been informed about environmental risks, water
Yeah.
risks, things like that.
Some of them are the
Cyberspace-
same.
Some of the consequences could be the same.
Yep.
So when you're engineering, when you're doing a design, when you're operating, use regular engineering principles and practices to protect your critical infrastructure, regardless of where the threat comes from, but recognize the new risks introduced by these cyber systems.
Yep.
And over where I work at CIS, we've long had controls, benchmarks, all kind of things that
Yep.
are pure IT. Everybody loves the CIS controls. We're now also looking at how do we blend that into the OT world. We've
Good.
got several blogs and articles about if you're pure OT, here's how you can take these controls, benchmarks, and products and map them over. So it's kind of an exciting time to see how we can do a little more blending of what has always worked in one area, can we apply it to another area?
Yep.
And we're finding out we can.
Good. And I'll end with read my books. I wrote a cyber thriller series called The Breaking Backbones Hacker Trilogy. Starts with a drone war and kamikaze drones, that is a convergence of cyber physical right there. And there's an AI that comes into play in books 2 and books 3, and there is an attack on 3 power grids that are used as a smokescreen for something bigger. Mark helped me understand the technology on how to conduct those grid attacks, and the hackers end up rescuing
Don't worry, we
everybody.
didn't give away any secrets.
Yeah,
You know, no
exactly.
national secrets.
So that's on Amazon, and please enjoy. We did give away 30 books today. After the session, I autographed 30 books and gave them away.
Thank you.
This was